Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our Manual International School's English classes for grade 4. So today we will be discussing how to write a scene or a play. And this topic, writing a scene or a play, can be found in your Readers and Writers Notebook on page 419. Okay, so how does one write a play? How does one write a scene in a play? So there's three things that we need to remember when we write a play or we write a scene within a play. Firstly, a play is a story that is acted out by someone else or acted out by a few kids or people. Like when we watch a movie, it is basically a story being acted out by different characters in the story. Like if we look at Avengers, the movie Avengers, basically someone wrote that story, and Captain America and Iron Man and the Hulk, they're all characters acting out that story, and that is what we call a play. So what is the most important features and what is really necessary for us to have in our play when we are writing it? So the first thing that we need to have when we write a play is we have to have a story. We need to write a story that includes a plot, a setting, and a theme. So previously I explained that a plot is basically the sequence of events, what happens in the story, how does the plot develop, what happens at the beginning, what happens in the middle, and how does the story end. That is basically a plot. The setting is basically telling us where the story is taking place. Are you writing a story which is played out, which is happening in Riyadh or the United States or in South Africa? That would be the setting where the story is taking place. And then also your story needs to have a theme, meaning it needs to have an important message. So if you're writing a story and your theme of your story is what you want people to take and remember of the story is that working together, like in the Avengers Endgame, standing together against a powerful enemy or a powerful or a difficult task. If you work together and you show brotherhood and you show love, you can overcome that. So that is the underlining theme of a story. So when we write a scene, we need to have written a story which includes a plot, a setting, and a theme. That's the first point, the very, very first point of writing a play. The second point that we need to include in our play is basically there has to be a dialogue. Okay, there has to be a dialogue. A dialogue is a dialogue means there has to be a conversation between people. Like we see in this picture over here, that Captain America is speaking to Mr. Stark in the story or in the movie of Avengers. So Captain America is saying, "Big man in a suit of armor, take that off. What are you?" Then Mr. Stark replies and he says, "I am a genius, I am a billionaire, and I am a philanthropist." So when characters in your story speak to one another, have a conversation with one another, that is basically a dialogue. So the first point that we need to have when we write a play is that we have to write a story that includes a plot, a setting, and a theme. And secondly, there has to be characters in your story, and there has to be a dialogue, a conversation happening, talking happening between the characters. And lastly, your acts can be divided, okay, and your scenes can be divided when we are writing, okay. So when we write a play, we can have many scenes, okay, and we can have one act. An act is basically everything that happens in your story, and the scene are different parts of your story. So the first part, the second part, and the third part. However much parts you want to have to your story, that would refer to the scene of the story, and the act of the story is everything basically in the story. So I'm gonna show you guys an example of a scene. In the Avengers, we have different scenes, we have many parts, we have different parts in different scenes in the same movie. Similarly, in a story, you will find different parts in different scenes in stories that authors write. So if we look at these two scenes, or these two different parts, scene and part, and is basically the same. It's the same meaning. In when we talk about stories and we talk about movies, we refer to parts as scenes. Okay, so if we remember, those who watched the Avengers, we remember the one part where Captain America said, "Big man in a suit of armor, take that away, and what are you?" Then Mr. Stark says in a different scene, "I am a genius, billionaire, playboy, and philanthropist." Another example of a scene is where Loki speaks to people, and he says, "I've never met this man in my life," referring to Thor, and Thor says, "He is my brother." Okay, so this is a different scene in Thor, the movie Thor. So it's different parts, just to show you guys what a scene looks like. And then basically I prepared a example of how to write a scene. So basically the first thing we need to write is we need to have a title of a scene that we're writing, or an act we are writing. Then we have to have characters. I used Riago, I used Ali, Faisal, and Dulas. So these are the characters. And then also your scene have to have a setting. And my setting was a rainy winter's day at Riyadh Park Mall, and the characters were Riago, Ali, Faisal, and Dulas, and they were sitting around the table in the food court. So everyone knows what my scene will be about. My scene is a day in the food court at Riyadh Park Mall, and my characters is Riago, Ali, Faisal, and Dulas, and everyone knows where my story is taking place. It's taking place at the Riyadh Park Mall in the food court. So I will read to you my act, my act quickly. Okay, so it starts like this. Riago. Do you guys know what I feel like eating? I really want a burger from a place here, but here is so many restaurants we could go to. What do you guys think we should have? Faisal, I would like Burger King because it's very tasty and cheap. Dulas, I say we go everywhere. Ha 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 ha. Ali, guys, you know my dad only gave us 20 real to spend on luxuries. So let's go to Burger King and get burgers from there. And then we will have 5 real left to go and play at the arcade later. Riago, that is a really great idea, Ali. We all agree. So let's go. My tummy is full of emptiness. The end. So this is basically an example of an act and a scene. Why? Because I have characters. Why? Because the characters are talking to each other. There's dialogue. Okay, and everyone knows where this is taking place. It's taking place in the food court at Riyadh Park, and also the characters are basically visible in my scene that I wrote. So this is basically what I wanted to expound on and explain to you guys today. If we want to write an act, if we want to write a scene, we need to have a title. We need to have a title of our story. We need to have characters of our story, of the story that we're writing, and we also need to have a setting where the story takes place. And importantly, there has to be dialogue. There has to be a conversation happening between the characters. Okay, so I hope everyone understood the lesson today, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.